A few Sundays ago, Reverend Lena started us out. In fact, I think this has been her theme for the year. But she started us out with this whole idea that we are the beacons of light. We are the place where change and love and joy starts. And when she, it still breaks me up, when she brought out that little platform, talking about how all societies tend to be in a pyramid, and she poured that blue liquid on it, and it all started dissolving from the bottom. It's so easy for all of us in these times to point out there and say, that has to change. And just as the songs told us, and our beautiful inspirational message told us, it starts with us. It starts here, not out there. It starts here. And the more we focus out there, the less empowered we are. So that's what I'm going to be focusing on today. And I think the next thing, I jumped ahead, because it's not all about me. There's also Reverend Kay's message. Last week, Reverend Kay spoke about how it's not just metaphysical thought that drives this community. Science says this very same thing. To me, that is so wonderful to hear. Science says that what we focus on is what we bring up into reality. And we've heard that from metaphysical preachers for decades, for as long as most of us have been involved with metaphysical thought. But to see that even our very souls are built for this, and that physically, from a scientific point of view, we are built to create. We are creators. We are co-creators. God is not some man up in the sky somewhere. God is an expression of divine energy through us. And God can only do for us what God does through us. So where we are and how we think is so important. And if we want change to happen, it starts right here and right inside our hearts. And yet, too often, we are led around by these operation systems that are basically algorithms and patterns that just keep repeating themselves and have been repeating themselves since the time we arrived on this particular plane of existence. These operating systems, which we call our brains, they're very handy, they're very useful. They are great filtering devices. They give us the ability to get through the day and to solve problems, and they're built to solve problems. And if we don't give them a good problem to work on, guess who they turn around on? Looks for the problem inside us. Has anybody ever woken up at 2 o'clock in the morning with happy thoughts? I know it's been a few times when I'm about to go on a big trip, or when I knew Santa Claus was coming, all excited. But in general, when our brains are on automatic pilot, they are operating systems that are built for protection, and they are built to look for the negative. And it is, how do I say it, the process of becoming fully realized is the process of recognizing the difference between that output and our choice to operate from a higher point of view, from a spiritual point of view. Today, of course, we're all focused on these being challenging times. And yet, if we look to the spiritual leaders of the metaphysical movement, this is where we're supposed to be headed. This is a quote from Ernest Holmes. "The highest attitude of mind from which all else springs is one of perfect calm, absolute trust in spirit. The one who can, with perfect confidence, look into the future with perfect ease of mind and rest in the present. The person who never looks backward, but who has learned to be still in his own soul and wait upon spirit, This is the person who will most completely demonstrate the supremacy of the spiritual over so-called material resistance. I don't know about you, but that's a real tall order.
Yeah. Good. Yeah.
That is a huge way to be without worry, to be with total trust. Or as Reverend Phyllis used to say, do you have some worries? Do you believe in God? Then what are you worrying about? It sounds so simple, but it is a challenge. So first of all, we need to recognize that our brains do have this negative bias. How many people have you heard in the past week complain about the news being so negative? Guess what? It's because that's the way we were built. When we do our prayer requests, do we have half the room, even a third of the room, talking about blessings? About what we're grateful for? About the joy in our lives? And obviously it's important. We also bring our concerns here, and that's important too. But beyond that, we need to take a look at what we're asking and what we're focusing on. You will notice that when metaphysical ministers and practitioners are up here and we're doing the prayers, we focus on the resources and the positive, not on the condition. It's really easy because of our brains and because of our culture to focus on the condition that we don't want. And yet, how much more helpful would it be when we think of situations that are painful, people suffering, health problems, mental problems, and all of that? Suppose instead we focus on peace for that person, on healing energy for that person, comfort, guidance, and resources. This really came to my mind because over the past week, I am the secretary for the class of 1960 from Rolling Park Country Day School, and it is my duty to put together the class notes to be put in the class yearbook or whatever the publication is that's sent out once a year to all the graduates and so on and so forth. And we were a small class. I guess there's close to 30 people in the class, and probably around 15 people responded. 3 people talked about their life, about the things they were doing, the things they were looking forward to. And every other response was a medical report. It is so easy. You know, when we're the class of 1960, we're in our 80s. Okay, these spacesuits have worn out. We need part replacements. Sometimes, you know, we lose people. There's all kinds of things that happen. But because of the way our brain works, we tend to focus on that one thing as though that is our whole life. Or we have friends who focus on the political situation, and that is their whole awareness. But there is more to life. And that is what being spiritual to me is all about. It's looking at the big picture and not just focusing on what's not right. It starts with us. It starts deep inside us with our prayers, and it's not about just coming to church, it's about how we live our lives day to day. So, just as an experiment, just close your eyes for a minute and I'm going to take a little review of the last 24 hours. In the last 24 hours, was there a small miracle that you saw? Was there a small thing that made you smile? And what did you do that made you feel proud, that you could have put off, but you went ahead and you did it anyway? Was there something brand new that you tried for the first time? How many times did you stop a negative thought and turn it around. How many times did you talk to a stranger or give somebody a compliment? What did you consciously give thanks for? Who did you send a heartfelt blessing to? And we can open our eyes and come back into this room. That's just a little personal inventory. But it sort of gives clues. You know, miracles happen with tiny things, small things. It's the small ways, it's the ways we lead our everyday lives. If we want to raise the vibration of this planet, it starts with us. To be conscious is to make a commitment in our daily lives to bring joy and connection instead of fear and separation into the vibration of this planet. Joy and connection. So, as Ernest Holmes, just coming back to Ernest Holmes again, he says it all boils down to this. Can we, in the midst of negative conditions, accept a greater good? If we can, we shall be complying with the law of life. We shall be giving life a chance to work for us instead of us being tossed around by the chances of life. And with that, I just want to say a quick prayer. A prayer that each one of us, just this afternoon, makes it a mission to bring joy and connection everywhere we can, instead of fear and separation. To be conscious, to be spiritual, is to make a conscious choice. It doesn't just happen. And we don't have to have any kind of fancy spiritual things. We don't have to go off and sit on a rock for 40 days. It's about just the little things. There's all kinds of small opportunities that we have to bring love and joy and peace to other people and into our own lives. But it is a choice. Namaste.